Welcome to the ISO Show, dispelling myths and sharing tips for success to improve your business with ISO standards, with your host, Mel Blackmore.
Hi, and welcome to the ISO Show. On the last episode, I made an exciting announcement about a game changer in the world of ISO standards, which is the Isology Hub. It's the Netflix version of unlimited ISO standard support, which includes videos, checklists, sample policies, templates, plus many other things such as e-learning courses. Now, granted, you're not going to get A-star movie stars over on the Isology Hub, I'm sorry to disappoint, or even back catalogues of your favourite TV shows. But what you will get is binge-worthy content to help you to raise your game when it comes to ISO standards. So you can get that over on isologyhub.com. So what is it that makes the Isology Hub such a game changer? Well, it's a game changer because it provides a DIY, a do-it-yourself solution to implementing an ISO standard. And our initial ISO roadmap that we've got on there is for an environmental management system. So in effect, a roadmap for you to implement an ISO 14001 environmental management system. Over the next few episodes, I'm going to be sharing with you some of the topics that we cover over in the Isology Hub. In terms of ISO 14001, we have an ISO 14001 roadmap, and we kick off with explaining what an EMS is, and we feature step-by-step specific actions that you can take to make your business more sustainable and take it to the next level. But before I kick off with explaining what an EMS is in this episode, I'd just like to quickly announce that we have an awesome planner for your ISO project. And it's free of charge. It's over on the Isology Hub for you to download. So it's the ISO Standards Blueprint. And it's free of charge, but the great thing about it is that it's a planner for any ISO standard. So that's right, the ISO Standards Blueprint is a blueprint for implementing any ISO standard. So feel free to hit pause now and download your copy so that you don't miss out. If obviously you're out and about walking your dog or driving your car and listening to this podcast, try and remember to do it after you've listened to this episode. So let's dive into explaining what an environmental management system is. So an EMS is a blueprint for how you run your business sustainably and be kinder to the planet. Ultimately, it provides a framework, so in effect a home for your policies and your procedures. And the key objective here is that it helps you to identify and reduce your company's impact on the environment. So it helps you to optimise your current resources and to be as efficient as possible. So that tends to lead to reduced operational costs and therefore an increase in bottom line profitability. We've actually seen this time and time again where people have successfully implemented an environmental management system. They've seen reductions in costs for heating, lighting, electricity, fuel, because they're looking at specifically where they use energy, waste, water, and they can actually see by almost like putting on laser-focused goggles exactly where the waste is and where they can optimise that so that they can reduce costs. And of course, the knock-on effect is reducing their environmental footprint as well. So what's actually inside an EMS? So within an EMS, you'll have your environmental policy statement. But you don't have to stop there. You can have other sustainability policies in there as well. So you might have an energy policy or a sustainable procurement policy. But that's the top level statement of intent. Then you've got your procedures, so they're your controls, your documents, and also records as well. So when I mention documents, what type of documents should you include? Well, where the standard says shall, I'm afraid you've got to obey. It makes it crystal clear. So from a positive point of view, you can't get this wrong, ultimately. Where it says shall, you need to provide those documents. And in terms of some examples of those documents, you need to document what your scope and boundaries are of your environmental management system. And there is another podcast coming up on that, on determining the scope of your management system. Your environmental policy, that's a document. Environmental aspects and impacts. So that's looking at your water, energy, waste, etc., and what the impact of that is on the environment. So if it's energy, it would be kilowatt hours, for example. And then, of course, you can equate that into carbon emissions. Compliance obligations. So there's a whole host of environmental legislation that your company needs to be aware of and comply with. So you need to document that. Your business's environmental objectives. Okay, so there isn't much point in having a system if you don't know where you're heading. What are your key targets? What's going to be the impact that you're looking for when you're implementing an environmental management system? And finally, the standard also refers to any documented information that's determined by your organisation as being necessary for the effectiveness of your environmental management system. So the standard doesn't dictate the different types of controls that you should have in place. That does come down to your business. And again, that's what we guide you on and provide support with through the isology hub. But ultimately, they could be things like having a switch off campaign or LED lamp replacement policy. It could be a sustainable travel policy. So it's down to your business to be able to determine those requirements and document them if necessary, if you feel that it's going to be useful to have them documented. So where the standard says documented information, this is where you need to provide some type of evidence in the form of that documented information. So examples of that could include an aspects and impacts register. So I mentioned about environmental aspects and impacts earlier. So the aspects and impacts register could be a document that you have and you can provide evidence because you're capturing what your environmental footprint is within it. You may also have roles and responsibilities documented as well, so who does what. Operational controls, so how things get done. And it doesn't necessarily mean to say it's on a Word document or an Excel document. It may be part of an operating system that you have within the business or apps that you use. Then, of course, there are other core ISO system procedures that you may already have in place if you've got other standards like ISO 9001. So things like document control, communication, management review, internal audit procedures, documents and records. So all of these things will help you to keep on top of the management of your business. So why not incorporate that with environmental management too? Other examples could be an environmental legal register. So I mentioned earlier about legal compliance. Well, it makes sense to have that all in one place in a legal register. And of course, you'll have metrics as well. And that enables you to be able to monitor and measure your environmental performance. So you need to identify what you need to monitor and measure that will then enable you to shift the needle in the right direction that you want to go in and to be able to meet your environmental objectives. But you might have other examples like minutes from meetings or samples or supplier records as well. So if you have your air conditioning maintained, they are records, they are evidence of compliance because that's associated with compliance on F-gas regulations, and this is all linked back to then Legionella and preventing that. So it's all interlinked, so it's really helpful if you have a central repository, and in effect, that's where your home for your environmental management system is, for all of that key documentation and information. So finally, in summary, an environmental management system can help you to assign those roles and responsibilities. It can also help you to see where the bottlenecks are within your business. So where there may be pause points in decisions or actually getting things done so that you continually improve. It can help to add value because you've got really clear transparency on what you're monitoring, what you're measuring, and you can then analyse that data, which in effect can then help you to make better informed business decisions and moving forward. And of course, it does help you to be able to identify the applicable statutory and regulatory requirements so that your management team are informed, and you can also demonstrate your compliance to those legislative requirements as well. Because in each country there will be an environmental regulator. In the UK, for example, it's the Environment Agency, and they have every right to call upon any business to see if they're meeting the environmental legislation for that country. It doesn't happen that often because they don't have resources in order to be able to visit every single company. They focus more on the kind of the higher risk organisations from an environmental point of view, but nevertheless, you still need to be prepared for that. And also, finally, just to understand, where corrective action needs to be taken, because no business is perfect, and it's all about lessons learned. And ultimately, that will help you to prevent any firefighting and to look more proactively at sustainability and environmental management. So hopefully that's given you a snapshot of what an environmental management system is. We do go into this in a lot more detail over in the isology hub, because that's where we kind of take you to the next level as far as understanding what ISO 14001 is, how to implement it, and many other things such as videos and checklists and tutorials to help you along the way. So don't forget to download your free ISO standards blueprint over at the isologyhub.com. Thanks very much for listening, and I look forward to catching up with you on the next ISO show.
Looking to use ISO standards to drive better business practice? Contact us at blackmoresuk.com to access further information and book your free 15-minute call.